Well, joining us now from Jerusalem is the Sun's senior news reporter, Paul Sims, who has witnessed firsthand the situation on the ground in Gaza. I mean, Paul, it seems that there's a sort of a he said, she said, and surprisingly, or perhaps not surprisingly, the BBC seems to be on the side of Hamas on this one. But it all comes down to, at the end of the day, US intelligence saying this morning they do believe there is a Hamas cell operating under that hospital, and that's for this reason Israel is now going in and trying to weed people out. What's your understanding from the intelligence you're getting?
Sorry,
what are those? Are those missiles?
Repeat that again for me, please.
Yeah, what is your intelligence on what is going on in the Al-Shifa Hospital?
Right, sorry. So this morning, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, contacted officials within Gaza to let them know that essentially they would be entering the hospital. So essentially they gave them pre-warning. Minutes later, they stormed into the Al-Shifa Hospital. They threw in smoke grenades and then they went from ward to ward, floor to floor, looking for Hamas terrorists and looking for intelligence, looking for information. There wasn't any, I mean, there's lots of reports of gunfire, gunfights. The IDF have announced in the last few hours that there isn't any friction between them, and that's their word, between them and the patients or the medical staff. That they are methodically going through this hospital looking for any signs of the Hamas tunnels, any signs of hostages, and also the arsenal, the weaponry that's being collected and stockpiled within the hospital by Hamas. And you make a very, very important point when you say that the US intelligence confirmed separately last night that they too understood that the Al-Shifa was being used as a human shield by Hamas. That's essentially gave the green light for the IDF. Their operation is still ongoing. It will take a number of hours, I think. They've certainly secured the hospital, and what they're doing is they are interviewing absolutely everyone there. They've taken 16-year-olds to 40-year-old males into the courtyard. They are interrogating them, they're interviewing them, they're trying to find out as much information as possible. They're trying to build up a picture, and they're looking for any signs of those 240 hostages who were kidnapped on October the 7th.
Paul, last time we spoke to you was last week, where you and photographer Dan Charity has filed an amazing report of the Hamas headquarters that you'd visited, and you were right in the heart of Gaza, right where the frontline fighting was happening. You're in Jerusalem now, presumably planning to go back in when and if you can. Since we last spoke to you, how has the conflict developed? Is Israel any further in its mission to destroy Hamas? Where are we standing here?
I think from my assessment so far from the IDF, they are methodical. They are inching ever closer into Gaza City. They are searching through buildings. I mean, the buildings are just complete shells, but inside those buildings, there is potentially valuable information, intelligence that they can gather. They are essentially trying to cut off the head of the snake. So the further you go in, the more chance you have of doing that. And what they're trying to do, one of the main things, is to find the tunnels that Hamas are using beneath Gaza and Gaza City, so that they can essentially limit their ability to move, limit their ability to maneuver weapons, drones, and what have you, and to weaken their capabilities. I mean, what I've noticed quite a lot in the last couple of weeks is that the number of rocket attacks that have come in from Gaza, I mean, we're getting alerts daily, but they're not as much as they were a couple of weeks ago. So Hamas's ability, Hamas's firepower, its capabilities are being weakened because of the Israeli forces on the ground and the airstrikes that are coordinated alongside it.
I mean, Paul, the IDF say that they are conducting this operation with surgical precision. It's extremely targeted. Back home in the UK, there's a huge debate surrounding whether we need longer humanitarian pauses to get fuel in, to get medicine in and people out. My question to you is, even if that were the case, who would be the people in Gaza to control where medicine goes, where fuel goes, and who does get to come out?
That's the key issue, isn't it? I mean, who if Israel take control of Gaza and Gaza City, who does deliver that aid. You can't rely on Hamas. Hamas have been diverting funds for years to prop up their terror organisation. They've been using it to develop their tunnels below ground, so much so that the tunnels now extend to about 311 miles. So in terms of who delivers that aid, it's a very, very good question, and I'm not sure whether anyone has that answer at the moment. You'd look to the UN, you'd look to humanitarian groups. There's talk at the moment of a potential deal for some of the Israeli hostages to be released, and for that to be facilitated with Palestinian women and children incarcerated in Israeli jails going the opposite way. You would have to have a humanitarian pause, a ceasefire to some degree. But there's no, there's nothing more permanent, I guess, than a temporary ceasefire. And the Israelis want to weaken Hamas. They want to really cut off the head of the snake before anything like that happens. So for the time being, like I say, it's a very good question, but I'm not sure those answers are there for us to see at the moment.
Yeah, well, thank you ever so much for joining us, Paul Sims, there live from Jerusalem.